At 8:15 this morning, a fight broke out between three men inside this Tarouba apartment complex. It quickly escalated to the point where two of the men ended up outside on Anzac Parade.
One resident was allegedly chased down the road with a male wielding an axe, and he subsequently escaped into the caravan park.
The other man then allegedly dropped the axe into a nearby drain. He then returned to the apartment block to continue the argument with the third man.
During which a resident was stabbed several times to the abdomen and upper chest area. He was taken to the John Hunter Hospital and taken to theatre, where he was, I believe, is in a serious condition.
Forensic police canvassed the area this afternoon and recovered the axe allegedly used during the fight. A 41-year-old man has been charged over the incident with aggravated break and enter, intent to cause grievous bodily harm, and for breaching his bail conditions. He's been remanded in custody and will face Newcastle Local Court tomorrow. Madeline Bond, NBN News.
The cranes have been erected and construction's cranking up on the $350 million expansion of Charlestown Square. For those living nearby, the noise of progress has become a constant pain. So when they heard the news from a councillor last night that the application for 24-hour construction had been refused, there was relief.
Mercia rang me at 9:01 to tell me that we'd won, and she would have heard the cheer through the phone.
Councillors voted 9-2 in rejecting developer GPT's plan.
It is in a residential area. It will impact on their sleep and will impact on their livability up there in that area, and I think it would be totally inappropriate.
We've put up with a hell of a lot already. The town's getting covered in concrete, and it's 24-hour working is just not on.
Council officers had recommended the proposal be approved, saying noise levels would be kept to a minimum, with workers limited to using hand tools. A spokesperson from GPT says they're now considering amending their current application, seeking an extension for building work well after dark. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News. $134 a barrel. Once a talking point for those in finance only, the price of oil is suddenly interesting to practically everyone. The impact's not just felt at the pump, but every time we buy groceries, hop in a taxi or catch a plane. And now the people who can least afford it are copping it too. No longer able to absorb the escalating cost of running its fleet, Maitland Community Care Services will increase its bus fares next month.
We realise that our target group, the frail elderly and people with disabilities, are being hard hit from everywhere else as well.
It's a tough time for Meals on Wheels too. Volunteers are pulling out as they're no longer able to afford their delivery run.
Gets to a stage where it's actually costing them, I suppose, to do their voluntary work, and they shouldn't have to be like that.
And predictions unleaded could reach $2 a litre by Christmas are painting a grim picture for charities, who are already under increased pressure.
We've doubled the number of clients in one centre, 30% higher in another, 20% higher in another, so the need is increasing. We're really finding that people are really starting to hit the wall.
Jessica Phyllis, NBN News.
He was an old salt in all respects, a Geelong boy who first went to sea at the age of 16 and the son of a harbour master. David Hancox went on to gain his master's certificate in the late 1960s before specialising in marine salvage work. He meticulously planned the Pasha Bulker salvage and was at the helm the night the ship was dragged clear of Nobby's Reef, making this radio call to alert the tugs the ship was about to move. He's pictured here standing on the deck of the Pasha with Newcastle Harbour Master Captain Tim Turner.
He had this old seafarer's cap, and the word was always that once you saw him put that cap on, that was the day the ship was going. And on the morning of the night that the Pasha Bulker went, we saw him walking up and down, pacing on the port bridge wing, and he had it on, and we thought, this is it.
Captain Hancox died recently of inoperable cancer at the age of 64. The Pasha was the last of 150 maritime casualties he helped salvage. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
These are the living victims of the callous acts of cruelty. Tiny Joeys left orphaned after their mothers were run over by people in four-wheel drives. Animal welfare groups say the attackers have been waiting till nightfall to go after the kangaroos living around Morisset Hospital.
They're targeting big groups and they're actually taking souvenirs like the male's testicles as souvenirs and causing a lot of damage to the animals that are still alive.
Hunter New England Area Health says the property is so big that trying to stop the attacks would be almost impossible. Fencing the site would be too expensive and closing internal roads would limit resident access to the lake's edge.
Our security is only on site after hours and at weekends, and because of the size of the site it's difficult to monitor what's happening.
The tyre marks from the most recent attacks are still clearly visible here at the grounds of Morisset Hospital, making it easy to see just how the cars zigzagged all over this oval, targeting the kangaroos. The Hunter Wildlife Rescue Service will now hold a meeting with the Health Service to try and work out a solution.
We're looking at now getting a public awareness program up and running and doing some sort of a plan of management for how we can stop this happening again.
Madeline Bond, NBN News.
Straight Lines, performed by Silverchair, written by Daniel Johnson, June and Hamilton.
I really love my family and I really love my management and I really love everyone that I love.
At near full strength and with the Cowboys' recent form, it was a game Newcastle was always expected to win, but didn't they do it the tough way? Having led 18-4, the Knights were wobbling with scores level once again. When they duffed two chances of breaking the deadlock, a miracle comeback win was on the cards until Jared Mullen landed the knockout blow.
We're not really putting any sides away this year. It's always a nail-biter, and for our fans, I don't think there are any fingernails left. So we need to start putting sides away.
The match not without its controversy either. Danny Medeiros looked to have scored a certain try, but referee Shane Hayne refused to use the video referee to check, while tempers flared in what looked a real mismatch going on size. On second looks, you could see why Kurt Gidley had issues with Sione Faumoina. You couldn't argue with some of the football. Medeiros involved in Newcastle's first. And when Gidley crossed just after half-time, Newcastle threatened to really kick away. But the Cowboys made a real game of it. Gidley eventually shutting the gate on the Cows, who slumped to 7 straight losses.
It typifies the guy. He just doesn't give up, never.
Jim Callanan, NBN News. Little beats representing your country, especially overseas, but Jade North missed something special while with the Socceroos. The first steps of his son Zane, and they had some catching up to do today. It's fair to say Dad made some important strides too in his international career. Leaving still a fringe player, the defender has returned with a reputation only enhanced.
Over the course, I think I did quite well and, hopefully sort of cemented a regular place there.
While beaten by Iraq, their 3-1 win against Qatar at the weekend has ensured safe passage to the next section of World Cup qualifiers. But that doesn't mean Sunday's match against China doesn't hold importance. In fact, it should be quite the spectacle.
A bit more relaxed and people will express themselves a little bit more, knowing that pressure's not on you to qualify for the next round.
As for his playing future at Newcastle, the Jet skipper is keeping things close to his chest, admitting there is interest from overseas. No concrete offers have been made. What is sure, Newcastle will be reluctant to let him go while on contract without a hefty fee.
They have said they'll never stand in a player's way, but it's got to see if it happens first, and yeah, we can start talking if it does happen.
Today, dollars meant little for Dad and his little boy. Jim Callanan, NBN News.
This has been my childhood dreams for so long now, so it's just the motivation is just so high and just dedication just to be going to the Olympics. It's just so good.
In 3 weeks, Beresfield Station will be transformed from a Rarely Manned building into the new Port Stephens Police Headquarters.
Beresfield Police Station has been identified as an ideal location. It already has the technical capabilities with the police phones in there, the police computer systems located there.
Administrative staff and senior police could remain in the building for years, with plans for the new headquarters at Raymond Terrace still in their infancy.
Plans have been drawn up now. They've been reviewed currently to identify that they will meet the needs of the local command and the local community.
But with Beresfield remaining part of the Lower Hunter Area Command, some residents are worried the station's local operational police will be removed.
There's quite a few administration people going in there, and we need to have victims of crime and things being able to enter the police station and still have an office to go into.
Madeline Bond, NBN News.
Almost everything seems to be going up in price at the moment, and now Newcastle ratepayers can expect to pay more in their next bill.
The rates will increase in average around $27. That's based on the base rate system with an ad valorem land value component.
Added to that is a $25 per household levy to pay for stormwater drain upgrades. But that levy replaces the annual $15 environmental charge. So the bottom line is an extra $37 on the average annual bill of $800.
Stormwater drainage has become a problem, and there's more money allocated to that. So that's very important as well, because we're all aware of these storm events that we've had, and that needs to be addressed.
The Hunter Business Chamber says while the increase is relatively small, it will be felt.
It will have an impact in some shape or form because people need to find the money to pay it.
The extra money will also help pay for the repair of ageing buildings and a pay rise for council staff. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
Another day, another taxi booking system stuff up. Dozens of cab drivers lined up outside the Newcastle taxi base this morning after a myriad of technical problems with the new system forced them off the road.
This is happening every single day of the week. Happens over the weekend, but again, we don't have 24-hour technical support, so a lot of the cars are off the road for extended periods of time.
Since the cab charge system was installed in the vehicles just over 3 weeks ago, the fleet has been plagued by ongoing computer crashes, leaving passengers stranded and drivers without work.
The phone system was down again this morning, and I had people complaining to me they couldn't even call a taxi.
Earlier this week, Cab Charge agreed to look into the problems, but drivers say the company still isn't doing enough.
So far, even though Cab Charge turned up to the meeting the other night, we've been given no time frame or no indication of when this system will be fixed.
Madeline Bond, NBN News.
Ben Cross has missed 3 games since breaking his left thumb, 2 for the Knights and 1 for the Blues he'd rather forget.
Watching that sort of pretty bad loss was a bit hard to take, so I'm definitely seeing red after that game too, as all the other New South Wales players are, so I want to get out there and help them too.
The immediate challenge, though, is being cleared to play for Newcastle. One final chance to grab a sky blue jumper this Origin series.
I won't be picking a front row like myself without any games under his belt, so I definitely need a game for the Knights this weekend against the Roosters, and they're a great team to have a good game against because they're right up there at the moment.
The towering prop broke his thumb in Origin 1, and should he play for the Knights this Sunday, he'll wear a specially moulded guard around his wrist, still tender following surgery.
Ex-teammates down at Melbourne have used it, and a couple of the AFL guys that I've spoken to, they've used it and played with it, and it's been really successful, and they've been able to play a whole season with it, so it should be fine.
For the club as a whole, 2 straight wins mean things are looking bright. There's even a Razor gang in the mix at the expense of Wes Nguama's eyebrows.
The new look, is that to make you run faster?
Yeah, definitely. Just with the aerodynamics and stuff, it just helps you run faster, I guess.
We've got Richie Fayoso to thank for that, I gather.
Yeah, definitely.
Adam McIlrick, NBN News. Being the Hunter's lone Olympic swimmer is a title which still takes Angie Bainbridge by surprise.
I haven't even thought about it really. So, and when people bring it up to me, I'm just like, oh wow, like I am an Olympian. It's just so surreal.
During a brief visit home, the 18-year-old, who's now based in Canberra, was just starting to relax. But with Beijing calling, it's a short-lived luxury.
Just coming off trials and things like that, my stress levels have gone down a bit, but they will be creeping up a bit in the next few weeks just because it's getting so close to the Olympic Games.
She's been awarded many medals in the past, but one from Beijing really would shine the brightest, the lure of which keeps her going.
Sometimes if I'm having a tough session or not as much swimming my best in a session or something, I just try to remember that I am going to be going to the biggest sporting event ever.
In 2003, legendary swim coach, the late Eric Arnold, forecast big things for his swimmers, Angie Bainbridge among them.
Their careers have already been established over a long time, and they're on their way.
If only he could see her now. Adam McIlrick, NBN News.
Gillian Snedden is still suffering almost 2 years after taking a stand, and today further disappointment with a proposed government inquiry quashed.
I need this inquiry to go ahead so that the way I've been treated, the way in which Parliament have tried to hinder the investigation, the way in which my colleagues tried to cover up too, all of that needs to come out.
A committee was planning to investigate the effectiveness of existing procedures in protecting government employees who make such allegations. The former electorate officer says she wasn't protected at all, instead treated as a criminal, locked out of Okopoulos' office, ostracised by colleagues. She eventually lost her job.
All I've done is spoke the truth, and this is how I'm treated.
Gillian told NBN News that parliamentarians were aware of the allegations 3 months before the former Minister for Aboriginal Affairs was arrested.
Way back in the beginning of August 2006, when the second allegations were circulating, I faxed a copy of them to the then Police Minister, Carl Scully's office. I'm quite certain that he would have told the Premier.
The who knew what and when questions are important, and I'm fearful now that the public will never know the truth of when the Premier and the Deputy Premier first heard of these allegations.
Ben Blackburn says the inquiry is also important to the victims.
I think the Labor Party at the moment is running on the basis of, well, if it doesn't suit the Labor Party, it doesn't happen.
Milton Okopoulos has launched an appeal against his conviction. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
The Volkswagen sedan was little match for the truck when the two collided on the Nandowra Road, a few kilometres outside Scone, late this morning.
It appears that a fully laden semi-trailer was travelling westbound on Moobie Road at Scone. At the intersection here of Nandowra Road, which is behind us, it subsequently collided with a small sedan. And sadly, the two occupants of that vehicle died as a result of their injuries.
It wasn't just the two people who lost their lives. Their two pet dogs were also killed in the impact. The road at the T intersection was dry at the time of the crash, but rain started falling afterwards, destroying potentially valuable forensic evidence. Police are waiting to interview the truck driver, who is being treated for shock.
With the heavy vehicle being involved and the serious nature of the accident, local police have called on the assistance of Newcastle Crash Investigation. We're pending their arrival. A full synopsis of the scene will be done to determine the cause of the accident.
Paul Lobb, NBN News. Builder Chris Tonkin was showing the scars of his ordeal today after being set upon by a group of young thugs late yesterday near his home at the junction.
I was trying to keep an eye on the three of them, but then I was hit and don't remember a lot after that. I went down on the ground and then they're pulling my shirt over my head and just bashing into me. My thoughts the whole time were I heard my daughter screaming.
The ordeal began when Chris's 6-year-old daughter left the house with a letter for Santa, which had $5 attached for the man in red to buy her presents.
We'd put some balloons on it and written to Santa, love from Lucy, and she was just going to walk up and down the street, I think maybe post it in our letterbox.
But before she could, a group of boys described as Aboriginal in appearance snatched the money, and when Lucy reported back to her dad, he went to investigate. That's when the violent assault began, which was stopped only when two men passing by came to Chris's aid.
They saved my life as far as I'm concerned. Who knows what would have happened.
This is the shirt he was wearing at the time, now stained with his own blood. As of this afternoon, detectives said they'd made no progress, despite several witnesses coming forward to NBN News in the short time we were at the scene.
I'm absolutely disgusted that there's animals like this walking our streets.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
It's responsible for the health care of nearly 750,000 people in a geographic area the size of England. While we often hear about complaints, the vast majority of patients surveyed in the region, 90.5% of them, actually rated their experience as good, very good or excellent. That's compared to the state average of 88%.
We were surprised, but not that surprised with the results. At the end of the day, I think we all know we've got a quality service here, and we've got a very good community that is proud of their facility.
The health service concedes, though, there's always room for improvement. Emergency care is under particular pressure. A new report has revealed half the patients seen in John Hunter Hospital's busy emergency department could have gone to a GP, their health issues falling into the less serious categories.
It demonstrates that there is still a need for alternative care for some of these patients. But overall, there are quite a number of patients who do need to come to this emergency department.
Hunter New England Health says the after-hours GP service has also eased the pressure on the emergency department.
It's a sanctuary for animals, indeed, for people escaping entry fees, but not for much longer.
I think the council surely, above all else, can afford to maintain an institution in Newcastle like this.
As part of its new budget, council will start charging $3 for children and $5 for adults to visit Black Butts Wildlife Enclosure. For a family of 4, it will have to find an extra $26 for an excursion which has been free for 15 years.
I think it's quite reasonable. I think there's a lot of cost in upkeep of the reserve.
We've got this ongoing problem of increasing deterioration, requiring more and more amounts of money to address that.
Lester Mostyn from the Spastic Centre says the new admission fee will have a huge financial impact on his clients who have cerebral palsy.
And because of their physical needs, they need a support person to go with them, and that just doubles the cost.
10 clients visit the animal sanctuary once a month. They'll pay for the excursion and their carer. Over a year, that's $1,200 per group.
Maybe some consideration about waiving the fee for those support persons.
Council says it will rearrange the reserve before it starts charging admission. Adam McKilrick, NBN News.
It's all about support in every sense of the word. From childcare to sewing and English classes, volunteers are making a difference to the lives of hundreds of refugees.
We have that bridge where we say, yes, come to Australia, we've boundless plains to share, but there needs to be another step.
And they provide that next step.
We learn many things we don't know before.
The program is run by the Sisters of St Joseph at the Old Hamilton Police Station. It's been transformed into what's now known as Penola House. The volunteers not only welcome refugees from all corners of the globe, many of whom have endured terrible atrocities, but they teach them the skills to help them make a living in Australia.
We have everything. We have baby quilts, we have bags. I made some beads for necklace and ears ring. That is a big interest for us. We love that.
And once it's all complete, they're going on to be successful entrepreneurs selling their handmade craft at local markets. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News. Little Emily Kovic isn't even 2, but she already knows how to pack a bag. She is, after all, her father's daughter, and Daddy's been stuffing plenty of suitcases lately as the Socceroos continue on the path of World Cup qualification.
It's been 3 weeks since I've seen her, so coming home this time and her opening her arms and coming straight to me, it's a welcome relief.
Tonight, Auntie's back in camp in Sydney ahead of Sunday's match against China at ANZ Stadium. With Mark Schwarzer suspended after picking up his second yellow card against Qatar, the Jets keeper is back in the frame.
I know it's still going to be a difficult job because Petkovic has had the nod at the moment because he's just come off his European season. I haven't played for a while and that worked against me a little bit.
No doubt another national coach will be watching Kovic closely in the coming weeks as well. The Olyroos can use 3 players aged over 23 in Beijing, and with Danny Vukovic banned by FIFA and Schwarzer potentially unavailable, Graham Arnold could opt to use the 192cm shot stopper.
You don't get too much of a chance to go to the Olympic Games, and especially as a footballer. So if the option is there, I think I'd definitely snap it up.
Attention turns back to club duties when the Jets' #1 gloveman resumes training in Newcastle next week. Jessica Phyllis, NBN News.
Stuart Michalek certainly enjoyed himself in the days after Newcastle's A-League Grand Final win, so much so he missed an Olyroos training camp, but not this time.
Well, obviously, I'm going to have to do that little bit extra to make up for what I did and prove to Arnie that I want to be a part of the team.
Olyroos coach Graham Arnold has given Michalek, who now plays for Sydney FC, another shot at Beijing. A fresh start the midfielder is relishing.
I served my suspension, so he sort of said he doesn't hold any grudges, and as far as he's concerned, it's back to a clean slate.
And back to old times too, with former teammate Tarek Elrich in camp along with defender Adam Dapuzzo and Jason Hoffman. Mark Bridge is also there in a team which has had everything thrown at it.
They've been through every scenario you can imagine, from playing in the snow in 50-degree heat and on artificial grass. So nothing will shock them now, so they're pretty battle-hardened.
Adam McKilrick, NBN News.
The voucher system is used by hundreds of hotels in Sydney. Patrons ask bar staff to call them a cab and they wait inside the venue until a taxi arrives.
People waiting around in queues for an hour or more, is going to lead to problems, and that's what's part of the problems have been about in the city.
A trial in Newcastle was abandoned because of problems with Newcastle Taxi's booking system.
It just didn't work because the phone system wasn't up to scratch. They've introduced a new system, but that doesn't seem to be working at this point in time.
Publicans were also frustrated cabs would often pick up whoever was waiting out the front of their establishment, despite being ordered for specific people. Newcastle Taxi says the project hasn't been scrapped and it's currently being tweaked to help find ways to better match passengers to taxis. The company is confident the system can succeed, as long as all parties work together once the problems with its computer system are resolved.
Technology beat it before. And maybe with improvements, we can get it off the ground. I know that the hotels are more than willing to participate in the whole exercise.
Penny Evans, NBN News.
The number of people seeking emergency financial help from the Samaritans has doubled in the past 6 months. A former music teacher, Paul, has fallen on hard times recently and is typical of many struggling to make ends meet.
I'm going home with some food today out of the pantry, which people from the parish have donated, and that's beautiful.
The shelves are looking a little bare as the increasing cost of groceries, petrol, rent and mortgages bite hard. And due to the demand, the value of these food vouchers has had to be reduced by 2/3.
And that's quite distressing for everybody. People come here and it's not easy for them to come here. And then we can only assist them at the moment with a $20 food voucher and a bag of food. That's quite hard because you know that that's not going to get someone through to the next pay.
The Samaritans know of at least 60 cases of people living in their cars and countless others without long-term accommodation.
It would be great if people could donate food or money, and just so that we could help people get through the next month.
Paul Lobb, NBN News. It's just like a giant video game, but with all the killer trappings of an underground mine.
And you can put people into virtual unsafe conditions and send them home fine at the end of the day with a lot of knowledge.
The 120 men who make up the Northern District Mines Rescue Brigade tested their skills today with the help of a new $5 million simulator that takes all the risk out of training for dangerous emergencies.
If we can do it in a safe atmosphere, that's what we want to do, and we're really achieving that with the new technology.
The men did actually go underground as well today in the training pit filled with smoke to rescue a casualty pinned under rock. But it's a combination of the old and new methods which is now considered the best way to train our underground rescuers.
I often wonder what the old miners, if they come back now and saw what we can do now, they'd really be amazed.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
Lambton High has been holding Green Day since the mid-1990s. It's not only an opportunity to parade some fashionable shopping bags and dress up for the day, the message behind the event goes beyond the face paint.
It's important because we're the next generation and it's all up to us now to fix all the problems and make the world a better place.
Fosters lifelong environmental citizenship in students and teachers and the whole community.
This year, recycling and reusing waste was top of the agenda, with students asked to consider how much they throw away.
Think about what you put in your bin because it all makes a difference.
From some interesting looking snacks to accessories with an important message, the day raises money to rehabilitate the school grounds and fund environmental awareness projects.
If everyone bands together and puts in all the work, I guess we can, any school can do this, I think.
Penny Evans, NBN News.
Last year, 54-year-old Sadie Murray was living in a public toilet block at Raymond Terrace, north of Newcastle.
So you came in here sopping wet, just looking for somewhere to sleep?
Somewhere to sleep, yeah, and I slept in the end one, up here.
Her life has been one of hardship since she was sexually abused by her father between the ages of 5 and 16.
I've had all my marriages have failed, but I've never had any self-confidence.
Today, more than 40 years after the abuse stopped, she was awarded $50,000 by the Victims' Compensation Tribunal.
Sadie, thoroughly well deserved. Congratulations. It's been a long, hard journey, but we're there now, and you mustn't spend this all in one place. Thank you very much. Well done.
Sadie never expected to win her case as the statute of limitations expired 38 years ago, and there was little evidence of the abuse.
I had never reported it to the police. I had never seen a doctor. The only evidence we had was a psychiatric report.
Winning the case has truly been a life-changing event.
On Monday I'm moving into a permanent home, and next Friday I'm applying for a job working at Carrie's place.
Sadie hopes her story will inspire other victims to come forward. As for what she'll spend the money on...
Furniture and my hair and teeth. Going to have my hair done and get some new teeth.
Madeline Bond, NBN News.
It's a clash that has all the hallmarks of being a classic. Two teams at near full strength at either end of the top 8 and with little doubt where it will be won and lost.
It wouldn't surprise me if there's a lot of big collisions. There could well be a lot of points scored. It'll be furious, I think.
The coach will be if his side doesn't muscle up from the start. Ben Cross will add a lot of beef to the Knights' argument, but brawn and brains will be required to get Newcastle over the line, with tactics sure to play a huge role, and everyone was careful about that.
Well, I've got a different role this week. Shouldn't say that.
Danny Wicks advised not to say anything at all in the lead up to this one. After scoring that try the last time these two met, he's met with some criticism from Roosters prop Mark O'Mealy.
Like most of our footballers, but particularly our front rowers, to let their game do the talking. He'll show us on Sunday how he's dealt with it. Not much point in talking about it beforehand.
It's just another sideshow to the real event. No competitions will be won on Sunday, but the winner will surely have worked hard for the result.
You know, they've bullied quite a few teams around this year in the early part of the game and done a lot of damage, you know, mental and physical damage and damage on the scoreboard, and they've cruised in a lot of games. So I'll be disappointed if we let that happen.
More than most A-League clubs at present, the Newcastle Jets have been a revolving door for its rep players. Newcastle welcomed 3 more trialists this week, including Italian striker Valerio Mastrelli, who only flew in last night.
He's a very good athlete and he's got good game sense, and we'll just need to know a little bit more in the way that we do things. But first signs were very encouraging.
He'll see some game time tomorrow at Budgie against the Mariners, along with Yanni Galanos, who's come from Melbourne via Greece, as they get a chance to show their wares against A-League level competition.
The score is irrelevant tomorrow. It's more so the effort and to get as much game time as possible for most of them.
And if visa hurdles can be overcome, they'll welcome their former Cameroon Olympic striker sooner rather than later.
Don't want to say too many things premature, but hopefully within a week or so we can parade our marquee player.
It's the future of their captain which remains a talking point with growing interest from overseas clubs. The man himself just happy to see the game growing here on such a large scale. Jade North will actually be one of the older Socceroos in that game against China on Sunday.
The boys are buzzing. We had our first session today and spirits are high, and we just can't wait to give the fans something to watch.
Jim Callanan, NBN News.
I've been helping him feel much better, and I've been really nice to him.
It was the biggest airlift rescue from a bulk carrier in recent Australian history. Whipped by wind and driving rain, the 22 seamen were winched to safety by the Westpac Rescue helicopter crew in June last year. The crew's efforts have once again been recognised, this time on a global scale, with the 6 men receiving bravery awards from the International Maritime Organisation. They only narrowly missed out on winning the IMO's award for exceptional bravery at sea.
Yeah, we're mixing with the best in the world, and obviously we've been very humbled by the fact that a federal body, Australian Maritime Safety Authority, has nominated us. That was recognition in itself, but to actually come second, it's certainly very exciting for the service.
We work hard at training and play, and
do everything we can to do the best that we can, and it's just an absolute honour.
Even though they were battling gale force winds, the crew managed to evacuate the mariners without injury, an experience they'll never forget.
When you're faced with those sorts of conditions and 22 crew members on board, it certainly made the job challenging.
Madeline Bond, NBN News. Over the past 2 weeks, 72 dogs and cats have been surrendered at Rutherford alone. Many have been given up by loving owners who say the cost of pet food and vet bills on top of rising fuel and interest rates is simply out of reach. It's a heartbreaking trend the RSPCA says is increasing.
In the same period, 2-week period last year, we had actually 22 animals surrendered and none for financial reasons.
The financial pressures are also stopping people from adopting pets, leaving kennels struggling to cope with the influx.
It's very heartbreaking. We would never discourage anyone from surrendering a dog to the RSPCA. If they've made that decision, which is an incredibly difficult decision to make, we would certainly rather they brought the animals here than gave them to an inappropriate home or dumped them in the bush.
Madeline Bond, NBN News.
Neither side resembled the two which last met on Grand Final Day almost 5 months ago. Although missing respective Socceroos and Olyroos, a strong crowd turned out for what was a good day for trialists to strut their stuff. For aspiring Australian rep Dean Heffernan, it was a case of comeback take two, after his original return from a badly broken leg ended in more discomfort. It was only a trial, but derby matches can bring out the best and worst in everyone. The off-season has done Jin Hyung Song no harm at all. On the half hour, he broke the deadlock for Newcastle. The Korean star was the standout, and he continued to give the Mariners grief at the back. He could very well have doubled the lead before full time. As for the trialists, defender Anton Kovacic played the entire game for Newcastle, while you couldn't miss Yanni Galanos when he came on. Italian Valerio Mastrelli got the last 15 minutes after only arriving in the country on Thursday. But what about the effort of countryman Simone Dracolello? He only flew into Sydney this morning, but took the opportunity to go straight to work as well. Newcastle 1-0 winners.
Luigi Adlin, his wife and children, this morning returned to the remains of their new life. What they found was devastating.
We thought we are progressing here now, and again we have to start from 0 point.
Mum, Basena, was woken by smoke alarms just before 4 a.m. and quickly rushed to evacuate the kids through a back window.
I just came to see what's going on and I saw the door burning.
She then ran back inside the burning home to get keys to move the car, which was trapping the family in the backyard.
I can't breathe. It's really dark and the smoke. I can't see anything.
Luigi was stuck at work and couldn't get to his family until hours later. Crime scene investigators have combed the Casual Arena Crescent house for clues as to how the fire started. What is certain, though, is that this family has again been left with nothing.
We need help, really. We have nothing left. We are completely displaced.
Jessica Phyllis, NBN News. Lindsay Patterson hoped he'd be living in his Wallsend duplex by now, but 3 months after the contract's finish date, there's still not even a roof. Excellence Developments, which has gone into voluntary administration, stopped work on the site about 3 weeks ago.
We've sniffed trouble for quite a while. We've had stonewalling by the company ever since we started construction.
Accountant Vincent Hufel has 2 clients left in limbo by the collapse. One has a 17-unit development at Mount Hutton, which is not eligible for the business's homeowner's warranty insurance.
Once you stop the work, you've got to recommence it very quickly. Otherwise, timbers warp, the job site becomes unsafe.
In this letter to clients, Excellence owner Peter Thurlow said a new company was being set up by Philip Price and Shane Rose, which could take over construction on all projects. But when we contacted Mr Pryor, a former Excellence employee today, he said he was watching the Knights game, couldn't talk about it and then hung up. Jessica Phillis, NBN News.
He seemed to be getting taken out a bit after he kicked the ball and after he passed the ball, and so you can't say to not do it. You know, we'll have to start doing the same. I don't think he'll get too many opportunities as life goes on for him, because I've got a feeling he's going to be around for a very long time, and he'll get more than he got today. You know, in terms of where we're at, I think we probably went up a step or two today, because I think we competed pretty hard with a very good team.
We need to execute a bit better, and but no use saying the effort's there. You know, the effort's always going to be there with our boys, and I'm pretty confident in that. It's just got to be a bit better with the execution.